Welcome, everyone. I'm Robin from Western Mass, and it is Sunday, May 8th, 2022. It is Mother's Day, so happy birthday to all the mothers out there. And it is also my son's birthday, and this is the first time he was born on a Mother's Day, and today is Mother's Day and his birthday, so that's very cool. And having said that, I'm moving right on. Today is the first time we're going to discuss a sexy topic that has never been broached before, which is why are some people claiming different cures for Morgellons, but they're all different. They are all different. Some people claim they have been cured by ketoconazole. Some people have been cured, I have quotation marks around cured if you can't see me, with baking soda. Others have been cured with supersaturated potassium iodine, which is actually a cure for fungus and not Morgellons. And people, we got a letter from one lady who was cured by eating raw eggs and green beans for 2 years. And then there are people who feel that, and maybe they did, and maybe God supernaturally cured them. We don't know. It's always, I think that's possible. But you got to realize that, Morgellons manifests in so many different ways. There are fibers, but they're all different sizes. They're all different colors. They're all different thickness. Some people have lesions, some people don't. Some people have these little bumps, other people don't. Some people see sparkly things on their skin and other people don't. Some people, how we catch Morgellons, it's not the same. It's not like somebody coughed on you and you get COVID. You could get it from a cloud of dust. You could get it from springtails. You can get it from fleas, you can get it from bed bugs, you can get it from mites, you can get it from ticks. There are so many vectors of things that carry Morgellons. Some people think it's in the environment. Other people don't believe that at all and never get rid of it as a consequence. So we are going to look deeply into this topic today, why some cures work for others and some don't. So at this point, I'm going to introduce our resident expert, Richard Kuhns, the author of How to Get Your Life Back from Morgellons and Other Skin Parasites.
Thank you, Robin. What a topic for Mother's Day. I had to call it a sexy topic, hoping that would attract people to come watch, because what we're going to do is undress Morgellons. Everybody has their pet thing about what they think Morgellons is. And I guess it's because maybe that is their particular cofactor. See, Morgellons by itself is not a big deal. Basically, one person claimed on YouTube that he was cured of Morgellons simply with taking baking soda. All right. Now, that's kind of strange. It's part of my protocol, by the way, but I don't expect anybody to be cured. In fact, let me get off to the right start here. There is no cure for Morgellons, all right? We talked about it last week, and I guess it's a way you look at things, that why are some people affected by it and some people are not. In fact, many people are not affected by it. Maybe 10 out of 1,000 are affected by it, maybe 10 out of 100. I don't know. We don't know what that is. But there could be a way to make us who are affected by it unaffected by it. Would we call that a cure? I don't know. We talked about that last week. So anyway, this week we're going to look at what goes into making Morgellons the big scary thing that it is. And how could this person be cured, quote again, with baking soda? Well, first of all, because I'm going to get technical and give recommendations perhaps, it's important to note that the FDA requires me to inform everybody that before you start the King diet, which we're not going to discuss that very much in this video at all, before you accept any of my recommendations, and there may be a couple that I may provide in this video, but not too many. But before you do accept the recommendations or start the diet, you're to thoroughly discuss them with your doctor to make sure they do not interfere with any health problems you're presently experiencing. And the AMA and FDA require me to inform you that none of us are trained medically, so we cannot diagnose, cure, treat, or mitigate any disease. And that this is for educational purposes only. And it is strictly educational, is what we're going to be doing today. What we're allowed to do is we're allowed to educate you how to utilize the King diet, how to clean them out of your environment, how to clean them out of your skin, and how to build health and immune functioning. Now, over the years, now I'm not talking about 4 or 5 years. I'm talking all the way back to 1995 when I was first impacted by these organisms. Can you imagine how many thousands of people I've communicated with by email? Robin often mentions that in the beginning, that each of you are my research team, and you are. I learn as much from you, if not more, than you learn from me. So, and, you know, we have a tremendous amount of pluses of people who have gotten their lives back that, you know, we can put on our belt, you know, like, you know, and that's what keeps us going, because we know what we do works. But why does it work? So how did this guy get his life back? Was simply taking baking soda. You know, and everybody else goes and takes, well, as I said, Morgellons itself is pretty basic. And it is said, I'm not claiming here, it is said, and a lot of things I go by are what is said, is that the basic antidote for Morgellons is boron, which could be borax, if you want to be basic, and alkalizing your system. Now, if you're only dealing with Morgellons, then alkalizing your system with something like baking soda could be the answer. It's as simple as that. But for 99.9% of us, it is not so simple. So I've come to realize through communicating with thousands of people over the years that there are no really two people with exactly the same things going on or the same symptoms. Now, first of all, to be in the category of Morgellons, it is imperative that you have filaments or fibers growing from your skin, as described in Dr. Saverly's book, Morgellons, The Legitimization of a Disease. Okay? Now, that tells you whether or not you have Morgellons. If you have no filaments and no fibers, you don't have Morgellons. But it doesn't mean that what we do can't work for you or won't work for you, all right? So, because there are many types of skin parasites, and over the years I've kind of become very familiar and experienced most of them myself. So, now, back to Morgellons. Of the filaments and fibers, the only thing that's probably characteristic is that they will fluoresce under a black light or a UV light. They fluoresce, but many of us don't have a black light or UV light. Now, I doubt that there are two people with exactly the same symptoms in terms of filaments and fibers being of the same sizes, colors. I mean, for some people, you need a scope 60 power in order to see them. They're basically kind of microscopic. And unless you're walking around with a scope, you know, maybe if you're a jeweler, you have one, but typically most people don't, you're not going to see them, except that you will find an accumulation of a cotton-like or lint-like substance in your bedding and clothing without any reasonable explanation. In other words, you haven't been wearing wool or cashmere or something like that. You may also find little black specks. Now, these little black specks could be one or two things. They could be either perhaps a dead mite, or they could be tightly compressed filaments, so that when you look at them in a microscope, instead of seeing something solid, you'll see interweaving filaments or fibers in that little black dot. That's how fine they are. Now, how do they get that way? I don't know. I have noticed and experienced personally, and I've seen other people send me in photographs of these filaments tied into a bow knot, like a bow. You know, how in the hell does that happen? Well, we're not here to figure out how these little compressed filaments get in this little black dot, or how the bow gets tied. What we're here is to notice that basically no two people have the same, exactly the same filaments, because they can be only observable for some people, and they're 60 power. Now, they can be of different colors. They can be white, they can be black, they can be blue, they can be green, so different colors. And many people, the filaments are much larger. Some look, you know, they grow from the skin or from lesions. Some describe the filaments as long and moving. You know, well, I don't know. You know, I haven't seen any like that, but I'm not here to contradict anybody's actual personal experience. So by communicating with many people, it's safe to say there are no two Morgellons sufferers with exactly the same filaments and fibers growing from their skin. Now, the lengths can be different, the sizes, the thickness, the colors of the filaments. Now, many people say they have goo, G-O-O, I guess. Some describe it as black goo, some white goo, some clear goo. That's biofilm on the skin. Many people say they have bumps on their skin, nodules. That's most likely Purgio nodularis, but not everyone. So you see, some people have these things and some people don't, but they all have some kind of filament or fiber. Some have aches and pains, joint swelling, fibromyalgia. Many don't. Some report seeing sparkles all over their skin, like they light up in, you know, a Christmas tree in the sunlight. Many don't. Some have stomach and intestinal issues, and many don't. Some have issues with their teeth and mouth to the point, you know, they've lost their teeth. Many don't. Okay? Some are paranoid and exhibit bipolar symptoms. Many aren't. Oh, I'd say maybe 80% or so have brain fog, but some don't. Some have disfiguring lesions on their face, but most don't. Some have rashes, but many don't. Most have intense itching of some sort, but actually some don't. A very few, but some don't. Many feel the sensation of being bitten alive, but some don't. Some have an experience of their skin red and burning. Others don't. Many have intense scalp issues, but others don't. Some have skin rashes, and others don't. And even those with rashes, generally the rashes are different in size, color, intensity, and location. Some have hives near their anus, but most don't. Oh, many have digestive issues, and many don't. And the list goes on and gets more complicated because everyone has more than one of these symptoms listed that I've mentioned above to these strange filaments. So it gets kind of complicated. We're building a pretty big puzzle. You know, it seems to me that Morgellons is kind of like the game of chess. The king, that's Morgellons. But all around the king, you've got the pawns, you've got the queen, you've got the bishops, you've got all these other characters defending the king. But once you get rid of all those characters, the king goes, you know, he's in check pretty quick. So it's a matter of figuring out what causes all these different symptoms that are different with everybody, because no two people have exactly the same set of symptoms. It's mind-boggling. The problem is most people who look at Morgellons only look at the filaments and fibers. They're only interested in the keratin and collagen and trying to figure out what causes that. But they're not looking at what causes Morgellons to be the perfect storm of disease. And what's worse is they get pigeonholed into thinking that Morgellons is because of one particular thing and treating it that way. What explains all these different symptoms? Robin, in the initial statements, you know, why are some people cured with an antifungal? Does that mean Morgellons is fungal? Why is a guy cured with sodium baking soda? Why is another one cured with SSKI, sodium potassium iodide? You know, okay. Well, it comes down to the cofactors. It's the cofactors. And many of these cofactors can be dormant for years and be in your body for years and pose no problem until along comes Morgellons. And then all hell breaks loose and your life is turned upside down in the time it takes to flip a quarter over. Now, what are the cofactors? Because when you effectively identify and deal with the cofactors, Morgellons falls off the wall like Humpty Dumpty. Well, according to research that's published on the Charles Holman website, 90% or more have Lyme disease. I had Lyme disease. Yeah. Okay. Now, some experts claim that syphilis is involved. That's also a spirochete, by the way. I estimate that 90% have one of several types of fungal issues. Skin, fungus, Candida albicans, blastomycosis, I don't know how to pronounce that. The list is endless of the different types of fungal organisms that can be involved. 100%, according to many experts, of sufferers have intestinal parasites, whether it be a pin, round, hook, or flatworm, a nematode. There's slime mold involved in a percentage. A moldy environment in maybe 20% of the people. Maybe 15% have other nematodes or organisms in their head, their throats, their ears. They're actually a small percentage, and at first I thought these people were paranoid or delusional, but there's actually some organisms that emit an enzyme, and that enzyme allows the organism to eat through countertops, metal, cans, wood, and even concrete. Small percentage are dealing with myiasis. That's an infection of fly larvae. The fly might bite you and inject larvae, and this usually occurs in tropical or subtropical areas. But, hey, we travel, right? And we bring things to the States. Some are dealing with filariasis, a tropical disease by the presence of a filarial worm. Well, if you talk to Dr. Ammon, his approach years ago is metal toxicity, mercury. Get rid of all the amalgam in your mouth, all your fillings. Okay. Now, one lady recently wrote me and found that she had, well, I don't know how to pronounce this, but I'll take a shot at it, Manasella perstans. It's a vector-borne human filarial nematode transmitted by blood-sucking flies called midges. All right. Rare. So now we've gone to where 90% are dealing with Lyme disease or fungal issues, down to a very small percentage. There are protozoa like Babesia, often connected with Lyme disease. Amoebas that can complicate things and be life-threatening to some point. Bartonella, bacteria live primarily inside the lining of blood vessels. So these show up oftentimes as factors with Lyme disease. How do you pronounce this one? Spirotrichosis. Rose Gardner's disease, caused by a fungus called Sporothorax. In fact, there's a blog post about a year or so ago about falling into the rose bush, contributing to people coming down with skin parasites. Now, from the questionnaires that I receive, I can say that it seems that 90% of the people who complete the questionnaire are dealing with columbola, I don't know how it's exactly pronounced, springtails, snow fleas, the other names it goes by. I have plenty of experience with that myself. So 70 to 90% are dealing with mites of some kind. They could be flying mites. They could be like bird mites, rat mites that they don't fly, but they can, all kinds of mites. The columbola can be a carrier of mites. And these are also vectors for Morgellons disease. 70%, I'd say, are dealing with skin fungus, red burning skin. 50% or more report they have bumps or nodules on their skin. That's the Purgio nodularis that I mentioned earlier. Many are dealing with biofilms on their skin, internal or external. And about 20% are dealing with Strongyloides stercolis. Back in 2006, when I wrote the first book, which is titled Soothing the Itch Within and the Diet to Control It, was the title of the first book. At that time, I became aware of a fellow from Florida. And, 2006, that's only 4 years after the word Morgellons was cured. So it was all new, and we're all trying to figure out this thing. And he was really adamant and declared there's no such thing as Morgellons. Everybody has Strongyloides stercolis. That's what his claim was. So he was pigeonholed with Strongyloides stercolis. The list goes on and on. Fortunately, the protocol that I've developed over the years handles most of these cofactors, but not all. So this means that if the protocol is not necessarily producing the total result that you're looking for, you need to go a little further. The the lady who has the Manasella peristans was fortunate to find a doctor who knew about having tests done for weird organisms. You know, one lady wrote me and said, well, I'm going to see a doctor this week. Should I have a test done for parasites? That's a big laugh. You mentioned parasites to 99.9% of doctors, and you're going to be called delusional. So, but there are a few doctors around that can recognize that these organisms can come from, and she had some blood infusions, by the way, and so that, this is where she figured out that how she came in contact with this organism was through blood donation. So, unfortunately, most doctors are ignorant about testing for any of these parasites. The most likely you can do is get a doctor to agree to give you a test for Lyme disease. And then they are like this, you know, nothing really. You can have false negatives and false positives. There's even parasites like river blindness could be a cofactor. But this, as I haven't really found anybody to back that up, to have that actual experience. There are cloth mites that can complicate things. One that's mentioned in the book is Strepsteria. It's a tiny, practically flying organism that is almost microscopic, and I think the female stays in the skin and the male visits, but it's very hard to identify. Now, let's not forget another significant complication. Not everyone, but I'd say maybe 10 to 15% have further complications with things such as paranoia and bipolar that they bring to the table. Some claim that aliens from outer space are doing this to them, or their next door neighbor is trying to get at them for some reason, or even they report that there are birds following them, so forth. And the list goes on, and I'm sure that as time continues, I'll be adding to this list because it seems to be growing. We know most of the basic cofactors, and we know how to deal with most of the basic cofactors. So many have written me and told me, for instance, that Lufiteron has cured them. Well, what does that tell you based on what I shared earlier? Well, the cofactor was some kind of fungal organism. And Lufiteron inhibits the production of chitin, that is a building block of all fungal organisms. And it also inhibits the ability for eggs laid by mites or even columbella to mature. So it could also inhibit the growth of mites. Some say the King diet cured them. Well, of course, we talked about that last week, and when you go off that diet, can be all hell breaking loose. But for a while you're on it, it can be miraculous. As we mentioned before, Robin said Catazole cured them, the cream. Well, that means, again, it's a cofactor of fungal skin fungus. Baking soda, talked about that earlier. It's alkalizing the system, and that fellow was basically dealing with Morgellons without any cofactors. Fenben has cured some, they claim. You know, all these are claims. You know, I'm not saying that these things do, but these things help remove the cofactors. And of course, Fenben is about dealing with intestinal parasites and also parasites that one may have in their ears or their throat, nematode type of parasites there. The SSKI cure, the supersaturated potassium iodide, that's for spirotrichosis. rosebush disease, falling into the rose bushes. So, and the list goes on. The truth is that none of these are actually cures for Morgellons. It's like they deal with a cofactor. And when you deal with a cofactor, the king falls. He has no defense. He's gone. He is gone. So our approach is utilizing the king diet. Like we talked last week, somehow there are many people who are not susceptible to these organisms. Something about those of us who are susceptible to them, it's something about our body chemistry. And it seems to have to do with dopamine. So the king diet, and we have this new herbal remedy, the Nature's Gift Parasite Stop herbal formulation that reduces dopamine uptake in the brain, and one research project substantiates that by reducing dopamine uptake, parasite activity is reduced. So maybe this is what's different between us who are affected by parasites and those who are not affected by parasites. Maybe for some reason their brain just doesn't take up as much dopamine. We also talked about pheromones last week, and I've suspected for a long time that those who are not as affected by them as we are, their pheromones, their natural pheromones, are different than ours. And our greeter, Mary, has been looking into that and has experience with it. So we're looking at maybe adding pheromones to the store. You massage oil and you apply it, and that may be a factor that simply turns off their interest in you. Until we take away the cofactors, and as I said, our protocol has many of them taken care of, but not all, because all of them haven't been identified, and some of the ones that even have been identified, we don't really know how to get them off the chessboard yet, but we're working on it. So what this means for each of you, well, for instance, this Manasella perstans, for instance, once it's identified, the approach to it is simply doxycycline for 6 to 8 weeks, followed up with 1 dose of ivermectin at 12 milligrams and 1,000 milligrams of albendazole, which would be something like our Fenben. So that would take that organism off the chessboard, and leave the king exposed to be toppled over, unless there are other cofactors involved as well. Largely because there is not in our medical world, the CDC, a lot of doctors. In fact, you get better treatment with veterinarians, but they're not allowed to treat human beings. There is not a lot of resources or even doctors who are willing to test you for different parasites or even know of tests that are available. And there's certainly no hospital in this country that specializes in parasitic invasions of the human body. Thousands, maybe hundreds, if not 1,000 hospitals for cancer, but the amount, and everybody seems to get pigeonholed who is in this thing called Morgellons. They get pigeonholed, like the Charles Holman Association is pigeonholed in the thinking of Lyme disease and treating with antibiotics for Lyme disease. Okay, it's great. You take away that, and the king falls off the chessboard for a period of time. You go off the antibiotics, and that doesn't. Their own research says antibiotics don't take care of Lyme disease forever, for an extended period of time. Here's a post I saw recently by Michael Chapella. He's the fellow who is into the magnets, and for years claimed to have a magnet you could buy, but nobody ever could get it. They pay for it, but he never sent it to them because I guess it wasn't really developed. But he's gotten pigeonholed, and this is his Facebook post, claiming the issue of Morgellons is myiasis. Leland Stanford University is responsible for your lesions. the fruit flies that grow in your body. All right. Well, you know, I've known and I've seen things on TV about fruit flies, perhaps in India, in some child, and they come out of their body. You know, okay, so we know it happens, but is it predominant? You know, well, a fruit fly hormone has been inserted in your body, programmed to cause your body to create pregnant fruit flies that deliver eggs. Eggs turn to larvae, to pupa, to maggots, to flies, to lesions when they fly out of your body. Call this place and tell them to stop doing it. Okay. Well, he's pigeonholed into thinking it's meiosis. All right. So, you know, we had a guest on our program, about maybe 6 months ago or 8 months ago, Jeremy Mumphrey. He has a YouTube channel about Morgellons. He's into biofilm and syphilis. And, well, some of the symptoms are similar, and I don't doubt that. But, again, I think he's pigeonholed. And in my experience, I haven't found too many people found that they're dealing with syphilis. Well, anyway, our protocol, basically, the Pack of Life seems to handle spirochetal infections, seems to be what helps build health and immune functioning, so that when you do take care of that, so you take care of Lyme disease and any spirochetal infection that might be there as well. Dr. Ammon, for instance, claimed it's mainly about mercury toxicity. Get rid of all the fillings into your mouth that you got many years ago containing mercury. Well, that's $10,000. You know, there are different ways of skinning the cat. And I always say, all right, so what? Big deal. Boost your glutathione. Why do these experts forget about the value of glutathione? If you are poisoned with arsenic and rush to the hospital, the first thing they're going to do is give you a glutathione shot. It detoxifies. So your body needs glutathione, you know, so it's your choice. Spend $10,000 and have them all changed, or boost your glutathione, which you need anyway, and deal with that. Dr. Carjou, who's no longer in practice, was pigeonholed into thinking it's all about silica. Well, that means don't take diatomaceous earth, but hey, that's a bunch of crap. You know, diatomaceous earth is great in our experience in helping cleanse intestinal parasites, as well as you know, that's its main value, helping cleanse intestinal parasites. And then many on YouTube claim it's fungal, nothing but fungus. Well, everybody gets pigeonholed. When you're pigeonholed, well, you're not really open to all the pieces on the chessboard that can be toppled and knock off the king. Well, anyway, that's my take on Morgellons disease as of today in May 2022.